All right, so today we're really going to dig into something that's absolutely crucial for any Army leader,
Yeah.
and that is this whole idea of control. We're cracking open ADP 60, Chapter 3, and we're going deep on this one because
Right.
out there in the field,
Right.
it's not enough to just give orders.
Absolutely not.
Those orders, they've got to actually work.
They've got to work. Yeah, they've got to make sense. And ADP 60 is really all about making sure that your actions are lining up with the commander's intent.
Okay.
So think of it like this. You've got your mission,
Right.
but the battlefield throws all kinds of curveballs at you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Control is how you adjust your swing to still hit that home run.
So it's that constant check-in.
Yes.
Where are we?
Yes.
Where are we supposed to be?
Right.
But also,
Yeah.
how do we get back on track when things go sideways?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, they always do.
Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth. And it gets even more complex, the higher up you go, because you're dealing with more and more moving pieces.
Right.
Control, it helps commanders answer those two big questions. Are we actually on track to achieve the objective?
Okay.
And if not,
Yeah.
what needs to change? What needs to shift?
It's like that saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be ready to adapt. And one thing I thought was interesting in ADP 60 is how they talk about giving your subordinates freedom.
Right.
How does that even work when you're also trying to maintain control? Isn't that like herding cats?
Well, it's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Right.
It's between micromanaging every little detail
Right.
and letting things just totally descend into chaos.
Yeah.
Think about it like a jazz band.
Okay.
The musicians, they all have the freedom to improvise,
Right.
but they're all riffing on the same tune, guided by the band leader.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So it's less about dictating every single note
Exactly.
and more about setting the tempo, right?
Yes.
Setting the key.
The key.
Making sure everyone's on the same page.
On the same page.
Even when they're going a little off script.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where mission command comes into play, right? You're empowering those who are closest to the action
Yeah.
to be able to make those decisions. But to do that well, you need a few things. You need realistic timeframes.
Okay.
You need clear communication of intent.
Right.
And you need trust in your subordinates' abilities.
And that makes me think about, there's that example in the text about the German army in World War II.
Yeah.
And their approach, Auftragstaktik, mission-oriented tactics.
Right.
They were all about giving their guys on the ground a lot of leeway.
A lot of autonomy.
So how did that actually work out for them?
Well, it was a double-edged sword.
Okay.
I mean, on one hand, it allowed for just incredible speed and adaptability,
Right.
especially early in the war. Take the invasion of France in 1940.
Right.
The Germans, with their decentralized command, they just blitzed through.
Yeah.
While the French, with their more rigid top-down approach,
Yeah.
couldn't keep up.
Right. But,
There's always a but.
always a but, unrestrained initiative, it can backfire.
Okay.
I mean, during that same campaign, you had some German commanders, they got so caught up in the advance that they actually outran their supply lines.
Oh, wow.
And it caused logistical nightmares.
Wow.
So even with decentralized control, the commander's intent,
Right.
it's still the North Star, right?
So how do you walk that tightrope?
Right.
Giving enough freedom for, quick thinking and adaptation.
Sure.
But enough guidance to keep everybody pointed in the right direction.
Yeah. That's where you have the 4 key elements of control that ADP 60 talks about.
Okay.
We've got direction, feedback,
Right.
information, and communication. These all work together to create that shared understanding,
Yeah.
that common ground. Okay, so let's break those down a little bit, starting with direction.
Okay.
What does that actually look like in practice?
So it's all about giving clear, concise orders
Okay.
that focus on the what and the why.
Okay.
Not necessarily the how. We're talking mission orders here.
Okay.
You're telling your people what needs to be accomplished,
Right.
why it's important.
Okay.
You're not dictating every single step.
Okay.
It's about empowering, not just ordering.
Which makes sense because if every little decision has to be bumped up the chain of command,
Exactly.
you're going to be moving slower than molasses in January.
You're even moving backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
You need that agility, especially in today's battlefield, right? Things are changing so quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's not just a one-way street here.
Okay.
Direction goes hand in hand with feedback, that constant flow of information
Okay.
up and down the chain of command.
So we're talking about more than just after-action reports here.
Oh yeah, much more than that. It's about creating a command climate
Right.
where subordinates, They feel comfortable
Yeah.
speaking up, sharing what they're seeing,
Right.
good or bad, without fear of reprisal.
Right. No one wants to get shot down for, bringing bad news, especially when that bad news could be critical to the mission.
Exactly, exactly.
So that leads us to this next element, information.
Right?
But it's not just information, right? I mean, we're drowning in data these days.
We are just inundated.
So what does ADP 60 say about cutting through all that noise? What's important?
Well, it's like you said, right? It's about finding that needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
And that's where ADP 60 really emphasizes the importance of what they call Commander's Critical Information Requirements, CCIRs.
Okay.
Think of it like, setting your filters on your search engine.
Right.
You're telling your team, this is the intel I need to be able to make decisions. So focus on finding this.
So instead of getting bombarded with every little thing.
Every little thing, yeah.
Yeah. You're zeroing in on those key pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly.
That can make or break the mission, right?
Absolutely.
So what kinds of things are we talking about here?
So it varies, right, depending on the situation.
Sure.
But ADP 60, it breaks it down into two main categories. First, you've got your priority intelligence requirement,
Okay.
your PIRs.
Okay.
And these are all about the enemy, their strengths, their weaknesses, what are they planning, where are they located.
Right.
It's knowing what you're up against.
So you're not just reacting to what they throw at you.
Right.
You're trying to anticipate, think a few steps ahead.
Exactly, like a chess game, right?
Right.
But just like in chess, you also need to be aware of your own board.
Okay.
That's where that second category comes in.
Yeah.
Friendly Force Information Requirements,
Okay.
or FFIRs.
FFIRs. Got it.
So this is knowing what your own team is capable of, right?
Mm.
Troop strengths, equipment status, logistical considerations.
Right. Are we good to go on fuel and ammo?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do we have the right gear for this mission?
You got it. You need to know your own limitations
Okay.
as well as your strengths.
Yeah.
It's having that realistic picture of what you can actually achieve with what you've got.
Okay, so we've got PRs for the enemy, FFIRs for ourselves.
Right.
But there's another piece to this information puzzle.
Yes.
What about the things we need to keep secret?
Yeah.
What about the things that we do not want the enemy to get a hold of?
That's where EFI comes into play, right?
Okay.
Essential elements of friendly information.
Okay.
And then this is all about operational security, OPSEC,
Right.
safeguarding those critical pieces of information that, if compromised, could really jeopardize the mission.
And that's huge because in today's world, right, information is a weapon.
Absolutely.
You think about cyber warfare,
Oh, yeah.
disinformation campaigns.
It's not just boots on the ground anymore.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just about keeping quiet. It's about being smart about how we're handling information at every level.
At every level, who has access to what?
Right.
How are we transmitting sensitive data?
Right.
These are crucial considerations for any commander.
So we've talked about focusing on the need to know information.
Right.
But ADP 60 also emphasizes the bigger picture.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's not just about the immediate tactical situation. It's
Yeah.
also understanding the political,
The strategic
or
concept.
economic,
Absolutely.
social factors
All of it. All of it.
that are at play.
It's all connected.
How does that tie back into this idea of control?
Well, it's all about context, right?
Okay.
Imagine you're a commander on the ground.
Okay.
You're so focused on the firefight that's right in front of you
Okay.
that you miss this larger political shift happening back home
Okay.
that completely changes the entire course of the war.
Wow.
That's where understanding those broader operational variables becomes absolutely crucial.
So it's like you need that 30,000-foot view.
Yes,
Mhm.
we got to see the bigger picture.
Seeing the battlefield as part of a much larger landscape.
Exactly.
So how does ADP 60 break that down for us?
So they use an acronym,
Okay.
PMECCPT.
PMEIPT. Okay.
Stands for political, military, economic, social, information, infrastructure, physical environment, and time.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but it's important.
Yeah.
Each of these factors can have a ripple effect on the battlefield.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this all ties together, right?
Yeah.
You can't just focus on the enemy right in front of you.
You've got to look at the whole system.
You got to understand all the forces that are shaping the conflict.
Like currents you can't even see.
Right, exactly. The currents you can't see.
Exactly.
But how do you take that big picture understanding and then apply it to a very specific mission?
Right.
That has its own, unique challenges, its own unique opportunities.
That's where mission variables come in.
Okay.
METTC.
METTC.
Mission, enemy, terrain, and weather. Troops and support available, time available, and civil considerations.
Okay, so it's like taking that satellite image
Yes,
and zooming in on your specific area of operations.
exactly.
So you need both.
You need both. You need the wide lens and the close-up
The wide lens and the close-up to make those informed
to
decisions.
make the best decision possible.
And all of this, right, all of this information, it only matters if it's being managed effectively.
Absolutely.
And ADP 6.0 talks about this.
They do?
Not just information management, but knowledge management, right?
Right, that's the key.
Making sure the right information gets to the right people
At the right time.
at the right time.
Yes.
So it's not just about having, like, this massive Intel database.
It's about using it.
It's about turning that data into actionable intelligence.
Actionable intelligence, exactly.
And I imagine this becomes even more challenging when you're working with coalition partners.
Oh, absolutely.
Different nations, they have different systems, different procedures,
Different languages sometimes.
different languages. So how do we make sure everyone's on the same page?
Well, that actually leads us perfectly to that fourth and final element of control,
Okay.
which is communication.
Communication. Okay.
Communication.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the radio chatter.
Right.
It's more than just the sidetraps.
Right.
It's about building trust. It's about ensuring clarity.
Right.
It's about making sure that everybody is truly on the same page, singing from the same sheet of music.
So what does ADP 6.0 say is really important here?
One of the key takeaways, and I think it's something that we often forget in our modern age,
Okay.
is the importance of face-to-face communication whenever possible.
Okay. Because you can't always get that email, right? Sometimes you need to be able to look somebody in the eye to make sure they really understand what you're trying to say.
It's true, and it goes back to that old saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy,
Right.
but a good conversation, good conversation just might.
Right, exactly.
So how do we make sure that those conversations are happening, especially in the heat of the moment when things are really going sideways?
Yeah, so how do we bring all this together?
So that's where those four guides to effective control that ADP 6.0 outlines, those really come into play here.
Okay.
And they build on everything that we've been talking about,
Right.
the direction, the feedback, the information, the communication.
Okay.
And they give us this framework for making it all work together in this really cohesive way.
All right, so let's unpack those a little bit.
Sure.
What's the first one?
So first and foremost, you've got to allow subordinates maximum freedom of both decision and action.
Okay.
I mean, this goes back to that jazz band analogy we were talking about.
Right.
You got to trust your musicians to improvise a little bit.
Okay.
Right? You give them the sheet music,
Right.
but you've got to let them bring their own style, their own interpretation to the performance.
Which makes sense because, those who are closest to the action, often they have the clearest picture of what's actually going on.
They're seeing it firsthand.
Right. And they're the ones who can adapt the quickest, right?
Yes, yes.
Make those split-second decisions when literally every second counts.
Absolutely. And that actually leads us directly into the second guide here,
Okay.
which is to create, maintain, and disseminate that common operational picture,
Okay.
or, as we like to call it, the COP.
The cup, right?
The COP. Think of it like everybody having the same map, right?
Right. Okay.
But it's more than just that, though.
Okay.
It's about having that shared understanding of the battlefield.
Right.
What are the objectives?
Okay.
What are the challenges? Where are the opportunities?
So it's about making sure everybody's on the same page, even if they're like reading from different sections of the playbook.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And that shared understanding, that allows for much more effective decentralized execution.
Okay.
Because if everybody understands the commander's intent, they can make those really informed decisions, even without somebody, directly telling them what to do.
Right.
Because they understand how their individual actions are going to contribute to the bigger picture.
It's like a football team, right?
Yes.
Each player's got their assignment.
Yep.
They've got their lane, their area of responsibility.
Yes.
But they're all working together to try to move the ball downfield.
To get that touchdown.
To score, right. That's
Yeah.
the ultimate goal.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights the importance of this third guide as well, right? Using those common, doctrinal procedures,
Right.
graphics, terms. We all got to be speaking the same language,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Minimize that confusion. Make sure that we're all understanding each other.
Yeah, because the last thing you want in the heat of the moment is someone misinterpreting an order
Absolutely.
or misidentifying a target because they're using a different map. They're using different terminology.
Oh, 100%. That's how friendly fire incidents happen.
Like-
We've got to be able to have that clarity, that consistency, especially in those really, really high-pressure situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to that fourth and final guide here,
Okay.
which is encourage flexibility and adaptability.
Okay.
And remember, control here, in the context of ADP
Yeah.
6.0,
Right.
it's not about being rigid.
Okay.
It's not about, sticking to the plan no matter what.
Right.
It's about creating that system that can bend without breaking.
So it's like you're navigating a ship through a storm.
All right.
You've got your course charted out,
You've got the map.
but you got to be ready to adjust the sails, ride the waves,
For sure.
maybe even change course entirely if the situation calls for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's really what makes ADP 6.0 so valuable,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's not just this set of rigid rules.
Right.
It's a framework for actually dealing with the constantly changing, unpredictable nature of war.
Right. Exactly.
It's about empowering those leaders at all levels
Yeah.
to make the best decisions that they can with the information they have in the time that they have available.
And that really kind of brings us back to that example from the text of Napoleon at the Battle of Austerlitz.
A classic.
Right. You've got this commander.
Yeah.
He's facing a larger enemy force.
Yes.
But he manages to outmaneuver them and ultimately defeat them.
He was a master. He was a master of it.
So how does that illustrate, I guess, like these principles of control that we've been talking about?
So Austerlitz, it's really like a master class, right? A
Like-
master class in control.
Okay.
Because Napoleon, he understood the importance of shaping the battlefield, right?
Right.
Like to his advantage.
Right.
He was really good at giving his subordinates the freedom to act, within his intent. But he never relinquished control of that overall situation. He was always very aware of what was going on. He was constantly adapting his plans based on, what the enemy was doing, what the conditions were on the battlefield. He was a master of adaptation.
So it's almost like conducting an orchestra.
Yeah.
But instead of musical instruments,
Right.
you're coordinating troop movements,
Yeah.
artillery strikes,
Absolutely.
logistical support.
It's a beautiful symphony of chaos.
It's a symphony of chaos, but it's a controlled chaos.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about achieving that balance.
Yeah.
That balance between freedom and control, between initiative and guidance. That's what ADP 6.0 is really trying to get at here.
Yeah.
It's giving commanders those tools.
The tool.
They need to be able to make sense of the chaos
Right.
of the modern battlefield.
And that really, I think, brings us back to, the heart of it all. Why does this even matter?
Yeah.
Why should every soldier, every leader care about this, care about these principles of control?
Because in the end, it comes down to this.
Okay.
It's about saving lives and accomplishing the mission.
Okay.
If we can master these principles of control,
Right.
we reduce that uncertainty out there.
Right. Yeah.
We make better decisions,
Right.
and we achieve those objectives, hopefully with minimal risk to our people.
So it's about turning that chaos into clarity,
There you go.
turning confusion into confidence.
Exactly.
And that makes all the difference, right? Especially when the stakes are so high.
When the stakes are high, you want to be on your A game, right?
Absolutely. So as you go forward, from here, as you continue to explore ADP 6.0,
Yeah.
think about how can you apply these principles of control in your area of responsibility,
In your daily life, even.
in your daily life. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you build that shared understanding,
That trust.
that trust, that flexibility within your team?
Because at the end of the day, control, it's not even just a military concept.
It's a life concept.
It's a leadership fundamental.
Exactly. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive
It's been my pleasure.
into ADP 6.0, Chapter 3. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and we will catch you on the next one.
Absolutely. Take care.